Mal, let's head over to the phone lines and bring in a guest that I am very excited about because I kind of precursored it earlier. Obviously, we're talking Hill Country. That's where I was born and raised. And this is a lady who I grew up reading all of her stuff. Didn't matter if it was Llano, Burn It, Marble Falls, anything like that. We were always listening to Miss Jennifer Fierro. Now she is with TexasChalkTalk.com and the Broad Podcaster. Jennifer, how are you?
I am doing well. I was going to ask you, who are you talking about? Because I really want to meet this person.
Well, we are so excited to have you on. And I mean, you're a legend down there from where I grew up. I wanted to...
Or infamous, Ashley, depending on who you talk to in my family. Go ahead.
I want to ask you, you've been down in the Highland Lakes area for as long as I can remember. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up there and why you decided to call the Hill Country home.
Well, I'm like you. I was born in Burnet, grew up in Marble Falls, graduated from Marble Falls, had the opportunity to come back home in 2005. Really love this market, still have family in the area, still have lots of friends in the area. It's very difficult to leave. I admire those of you who can get out and stay out, though, I'll tell you that. But I love the water, and as you mentioned and note, I mean, you're so close to Austin, and it's just a great place. There's very rarely a place in Marble Falls, Burnet County, or Llano County where you can go and not see somebody you know, right?
110% spot on there.
Yeah. So, and that's really what I love about this place. It has been home for a long, long time. And like I said, I love water sports. I love being on the water. And there's just not a better place to be able to do that. And somebody who doesn't like a lot of cold weather. No. So it was easy to come home and stay here.
Man, we could not be more cut from the same cloth there. All right, so we're going to talk some, let's talk some Texas high school football down in your neck of the woods. And it's funny because it brings up a really good point of conversation. Clearly, you cover a lot of Burnet, you cover a lot of Marble Falls, along with the Llano scope and really everywhere down there. And we cut our regions into a little bit different than what a lot of local communities would call. So we're going a little bit further east, I guess you could say. But when you take a look at the Hill Country and storylines across Texas high school football, when people think of Hill Country football in 2022, what are you thinking are some storylines that they should really be keeping their eyes out for?
Okay, and this is, I want to make sure I understand. We are talking about your region, the way y'all cut the Hill Country, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So obviously the big schools, you always want to start there, but the problem with starting with the big schools this year to me is that they're not quite as strong as what we've traditionally seen. Mm-hmm. So I had a chance to see Kerrville, Tivy a couple of weeks ago against Marble Falls. I really wish them well, but I understand now what everybody else is seeing. I think Bernie Champion is still one of the most phenomenal programs. And I remember living in Bernie when their school district was talking about building a second high school that became Bernie Champion, but they really wanted to keep one athletic program and wanted to petition the UIL to see if they could do that. And obviously that didn't happen. To me, the best football right now, though, is played on that 3A Division I level, and that's in your neck of the woods. That would be District 13 3A Division I. And this will be a very important week in that district because the top 4 teams in that district are playing each other this week. So Llano is traveling to Universal City Randolph, and Blanco is playing Marion. And those 4 teams, in my opinion, are playing for seeds. Those will be the 4 teams that represent that district in the playoffs, and we'll see which one goes 1, which one goes 2, which one goes 3, and which one goes 4. That is the district, in my opinion, to watch if you like small-town Texas high school football. That's the district.
I agree, and you brought it up. We have a couple of those teams between Llano. Obviously, when you move up the classification, you have Bernie, and even down in the 1A ranks in Medina, we have a couple of teams that are state ranked in our rankings currently in the top 10 of their respective classifications. When you take a look at those, specifically Bernie and Llano, how realistic, when you look at the scope of the playoffs and their kind of path to the playoffs, do you think that these teams have to really start to make a deep run to hopefully AT&T Stadium?
Okay, so Texas coaches are going to hate my answer. But here's why I like Llano. Here's why. Because Llano has the ability to outscore teams if they have to, because they are so good offensively. They can run the football as effectively as they can throw the ball. And in Texas coaches, especially the ones on the defensive side, hate hearing the phrase outscore teams to win. But Llano can do that. That is not a knock on those defensive coaches, because I think that there's enough on that side of the ball for the Yellow Jackets that they can get a few stops here and there and get there. But as you and I both know, 2 years ago, Llano was equally as good, and they ran up against a team with the best player on the field. Mm-hmm. His name was Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks now he is playing for the University of Texas. He is in that 3 or 4 player running back rotation for the Longhorns. That night, he was absolutely the best player on that field. And that's the one thing that you can never underestimate when you talk about 1A, 2A, 3A, maybe 4A, maybe. Not so much in 5A or 6A. But when you have the best player on the field who can do everything on the lower classifications like that, that's really difficult to overcome. Now, and that's what I'm curious to see here.
Right, and now sticking to that same topic, now you just mentioned it, when you've got that special player on those smaller ranks, man, like that whole team can just absolutely change. So what are some of those players that you think that we should maybe keep an eye out for, not only in the smaller ranks, but just in the entire Hill Country as a region?
Out of that region, okay. Now I'm going to give you one in Llano that you're familiar with, Carson Kirkendall. This kid has already run through 6 games. He already has 900 yards for the season rushing the football. He told me last week that as soon as he gets to 1,000 yards, he's taking his offensive lineman for pancakes. So that sounds like an expensive promise, but all the best to the young man. The other kids that have really stood out to me on the lower level, and it's because of their age. So we're going to move to Bernie High School and talk about that district, 14-4A Division I. I really, really, really like their quarterback here, and I really like their running back because they're both sophomores. Quarterback Jackson Buys, he has completed 84 passes for 1,254 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And then the running back is Adam Hicks. He has 69 rushes for 297 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think that Bernie is going to be very difficult for years to come because of those 2 skill players there. Now, obviously, the one thing I don't know, and unfortunately, when you have the lower levels, sometimes you have some classes that have great linemen and some classes that don't, and you have to create them. That's the one thing that I don't know yet. Do they have those back-to-back classes with linemen that they can just insert and go? In 5A and 6A, especially in 6A, there's no reason to not have that. But in the lower classifications, sometimes you have to be a little more patient.
So obviously we've sat here and we've talked a lot about the really good teams in this region that we agree completely with you have a good chance to make a deep playoff run there. Are there any other schools that maybe we haven't spent as much time talking about, or just really one other school that you think that we should keep on our radar, maybe from a state ranking perspective?
Okay, I'm going to go out of region then on this one. And I have a very good reason for it. So, but I'm hoping you tell me that y'all already know about this school and I'm wrong. How familiar are y'all with Comal Davenport?
Pretty good. They're the first year of the first year UIL team, correct?
Correct. So tell me, how many times has a school in their first year playing varsity football qualified for the playoffs?
It's not incredibly often.
No.
Right. 10 years ago when Marble Falls, back in 2010, man, I'm old. In 2010, Marble Falls was playing a school named Austin Vandegrift. I don't know if you've heard of Vandegrift, but back then they were in their first year of playing varsity ball. The Austin media covered that game because all Vandegrift had to do was beat Marble Falls to get into the playoffs. And everybody thought they were going to do it in their first year playing varsity ball. What they didn't realize was that Marble Falls also needed to beat Vandegrift to get into the playoffs. Marble Falls had two NFL players on their roster that season. They ended up going to the NFL. One of them signed a contract. And actually was a backup. Okay. I say that to you because in my mind, Davenport is one of those teams. They are 5-0. They have the athleticism that you want. They seem to have the depth in that district. That, to me, is a team that I think will win the district. I think Canyon Lake will go number 2 in that district, and it'll be interesting to see who gets the other 2 playoff spots. If we're going to stick with the hill country here, the problem is that I have followed a lot of these teams in your region for a long time. It's difficult for me to say or think that these schools, because I feel like these are schools that most everybody's familiar with. I think most everybody knows Somerset and Bernie. We're all cheering for Uvalde, right? All of us are really wanting Uvalde to do well this season for sure. I am curious to see what Harper and Johnson City do, because I think Johnson City and Mason are the 2 teams to beat in that district. Just talking to Michael McLeod this year a little bit and covering Mason a little bit more, the Punchers are a very interesting team to me because they are the opposite of what we just talked about. They are so good defensively, and they're still trying to find their footing offensively. But that district, that division, that district 14-2A district there with Johnson City and Mason, I'm very curious about the Eagles. Because I think the district championship will come down to Mason and Johnson City here in a couple of weeks.
I agree. And going back to, I love the pick on Davenport because that running back, Shaston Golden, he's something special. We've got our eye on him. Finally, I want to ask you, because obviously I'm familiar with the area. The people that are listening might not be familiar with the area. If anyone is heading down to your neck of the woods, where would you recommend them eating?
Well, I really thought long and hard about this, and you are really putting me on the spot here. I want you to know that because I know a lot of these long-time eateries here in the Highland Lakes, okay? You're about to get me in trouble. In Llano, you and I both know Llano is known for barbecue. Cooper's is really good. Inman's is really good. Inman's also has a barbecue shop in Marble Falls. I would always go with Inman's because they have been around for as long as I can remember. I'm almost 50, and they've been around. They're older than I am. In Marble Falls, if y'all are coming here and you want a family establishment, I would go to River City Grill. It's locally owned. Paul Brady owns that establishment. It's very similar to the Blue Bonnet, but it's open for dinner 7 days a week. And then if you're looking for something a little out of the ordinary, there are a couple of breweries in Marble Falls that I would recommend. Double Horn, for sure, is one that I really, really like. Bear King is one that I like as well. But because they are all authentic, natural ingredients, they make everything in-house.
Oh, wow.
And the same thing with River City Grill. They make everything in-house. There's rarely any condiments that they buy that they don't make themselves. They make all of their dressings. They make all of their sauces. Everything is done daily in-house. And those are the 3 places I would go with. Like I said, but if you want barbecue, man, it's very hard to go against any of the local eateries or establishments around here.
No doubt. I absolutely love the recommendations. She is Jennifer Fierro. Again, she's from TexasChalkTalk.com and the broadcaster. You can follow her at Fierro Jennifer on Twitter. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck with the rest of the season down there.
Well, you too, Ashley. I hope we can do this again soon, and take care. Enjoy watching the best football in the nation.